They wake up before the alarm. Their surroundings are arranged with a precision that looks effortless, even though it clearly is not. And when they decide to do something, they do not reopen that decision every morning. The choice has already been made. It does not need to be negotiated again. Temptation still exists in their life. They get tired, distracted, and unmotivated like everyone else. But somehow, those feelings rarely change what they do. They complete what they planned, then quietly move on to the next task. When people observe someone like this, they usually feel admiration or a subtle fear that they are missing something this person has already mastered. But the psychology of extremely disciplined people is more complicated than it appears, because there are two very different forms of discipline. From the outside, they may look almost identical. Underneath, they can come from completely different places. To understand the difference, we first need to examine what discipline actually is. The popular image of discipline is someone constantly resisting temptation through sheer force of character. They want to stop, but force themselves to continue. That image is compelling. It is also incomplete. In 2005, psychologists Angela Duckworth and Martin Seligman published an influential study showing that self-discipline predicted the academic performance of 8th grade students more strongly than IQ. More disciplined students generally earned better grades, attended school more consistently, and performed better on achievement tests. But the researchers did not define discipline as one dramatic act of willpower. They measured patterns across everyday life: studying, managing impulses, delaying rewards, and following through on intentions. In other words, discipline was not something a person displayed during one heroic moment. It was a behavioral pattern repeated consistently over time. A pattern, not a performance. That distinction matters because resisting impulses requires effort. When someone is tired, stressed, or emotionally overwhelmed, that effort becomes harder to maintain. If discipline depended entirely on fighting temptation, even the strongest person would eventually become exhausted. But highly disciplined people do not usually spend every hour wrestling with themselves. Research on people with high-trait self-control suggests that they often experience fewer conflicts between immediate desires and long-term intentions. This does not necessarily mean they have fewer desires. Their habits, surroundings, and routines simply prevent many desires from becoming difficult decisions. A disciplined person may not need to resist unhealthy food every evening because they do not keep it nearby. They may not debate whether to exercise because their workout already has a fixed place in the day. Their discipline appears earlier in the process. It exists in the environment they designed, the habits they repeated, and the decisions they made before temptation arrived. The battle is often won during planning, not during the final moment of resistance. This is the first important truth about extremely disciplined people. They are not necessarily forcing themselves through every hour. They are operating inside a system created when the pressure was lower. That system now carries much of the weight. But these systems can grow from two very different psychological foundations. And the foundation determines both what the discipline creates and what it eventually costs. The first form of discipline is built around personal values. This person understands what matters to them, what they want to create, and who they want to become. Their routines are expressions of that identity. Self-determination theory, developed by psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, describes a similar process as autonomous regulation. It means pursuing goals that feel personally meaningful and integrated into your sense of self. This kind of motivation is generally associated with greater persistence, well-being, and sustainable performance. For this person, doing something difficult does not always feel like fighting themselves. It often feels like alignment. The difficult action represents the life they consciously chose. Avoiding it feels uncomfortable because it conflicts with something they genuinely value. In this form, discipline can be deeply freeing. The routine is not a cage. It is a container that protects meaningful work from distraction. It removes the exhaustion of starting from zero and renegotiating the same commitment every morning. This person is not simply moving efficiently. They know why they are moving and have consciously chosen the direction. But there is another form of extreme discipline that deserves closer examination. For some people, rigid structure begins as a response to an unpredictable childhood. A child may not be able to control the adults around them, the emotional atmosphere at home, or what will happen next, but they may discover that they can control themselves. They can organize their room, complete every assignment, wake up at an exact time, and repeat small routines with precision. Predictability becomes a signal of safety. When the outside world feels unreliable, personal structure may become the only dependable source of stability. The child eventually becomes an adult, but those protective routines do not automatically disappear. They become more refined and productive. Eventually, they may be praised as evidence of exceptional discipline. From the outside, this looks almost identical to values-driven discipline: the same early mornings, orderly surroundings, consistency, and resistance to distraction. Internally, however, the experience is very different. The values-driven person finds structure useful. If the routine changes, they may feel uncomfortable, but they can adapt. The fear-driven person experiences structure as protection. When the routine breaks, they may feel anxious, exposed, or strangely unsafe. This reveals something conversations about discipline often overlook. Not every form of structure creates freedom. Some structures become sophisticated cages that resemble successful lives from the outside. The person may no longer be using discipline only to build something meaningful. They may also be using it to avoid the fear of losing control. Who are they when the schedule collapses? Are they still worthy when they are not productive? Can they rest without feeling guilty? If those questions remain unanswered, discipline can become a way of escaping them. One way to recognize the difference is to imagine a week with no goals, measurements, or carefully maintained routine. The values-driven person may initially feel restless, but they can gradually settle. They understand that resting does not erase their identity or destroy their progress. The fear-driven person may feel increasing anxiety. Without the routine, it can seem as though something essential is disappearing. For them, structure is no longer merely something they use. It has become something they believe they are. Fear-driven discipline can also affect relationships. Close relationships contain uncertainty. Conversations run longer than expected. Someone needs support at an inconvenient time. Plans change, emotions shift, and connection interrupts efficiency. For someone whose sense of safety depends on control, this unpredictability can feel threatening. They may genuinely want connection while struggling to remain fully present. The next task is already demanding their attention, and spontaneity feels like danger rather than freedom. The same armor that once protected them can gradually isolate them. Here lies the central paradox. Both forms of extreme discipline can produce impressive results. Fear-driven discipline may still create achievement, recognition, and visible success. And because the system works, the results appear to prove that the system must always be right. The person begins to believe that more control, tighter routines, and greater efficiency will finally provide the peace that achievement has not delivered. That is the trap. It is not created by failure. It is created by success that makes the underlying system difficult to question. Discipline driven by guilt, pressure, or fear can produce impressive results for a while. Over time, however, the difference appears in a person's flexibility, well-being, and ability to continue without breaking themselves. Some disciplined people possess both strong self-control and meaningful direction. Their routines protect goals they genuinely care about. Others have the system without the purpose. They become remarkably effective at completing tasks they never consciously chose. They are so busy doing things well that they never pause to ask whether those things are worth doing. Extreme discipline can protect the slow, unglamorous work required to build something meaningful. It can carry a person through distraction, boredom, and temporary discomfort. But that discipline is only as valuable as the direction it serves. Discipline in service of a genuine life is one of the strongest forces a person can develop. Discipline used as a substitute for a genuine life can become an efficient way to spend years moving without ever truly arriving. The system is the vehicle, it is not the destination. And if this made you question whether your discipline is taking you somewhere you genuinely want to go, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more psychology that goes deeper than the surface.